Hey, have you ever thought about the best way to learn how to own your exit is to learn how to acquire businesses and make them even more profitable? Today on Own the Exit, we're talking to George Salas, the founder of Empress Capital Group and a guy who is on a journey to become an absolute expert at buying businesses. And so today, what you're going to get is you're going to get a real-time conversation with a guy who's got a lot of knowledge, not just in the short-term rental portfolio space, but also in acquiring businesses with an end goal of building his business in such a way that he can own his exit. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Own the Exit. Excited here in the studio with Aaron. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, what's up, Caleb? Glad to be with you guys today.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the guest that we have today. George Salas is the founder of Empress Capital Group. They buy short-term rental portfolios in different markets all across the country.
Yeah.
He has a really unique approach to that, and I hope we get the opportunity to dive into his approach to that. But one of the compelling reasons that we wanted to have George on the show was because George is on a journey to become an absolute expert at acquiring businesses. And he sees that as his key strategy to learning more and more every day on how to build his business with the end in mind. If he ever wants to exit and sell his business, then what better way to know how to continue to build that business than to become an expert on buying other people's businesses?
Absolutely.
George, just want to thank you for joining us for Own the Exit, man. I'm really excited about this episode.
Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for having me this beautiful morning. I appreciate you. And it's been a pleasure and hanging out with you in the last few weeks. So thanks for having me again. Super excited to be here.
Yeah,
man.
So George, just take a moment, introduce yourself. I know I shared a little bit about you, but share just a little bit about your journey. What's going on with you, man?
Yeah, sure, man. First of all, I am a fella that came out from nothing. So I was born in a third world country in Peru, and at the age of 6 is when my journey really started. Parents were getting a divorce, and mom and I, my brother, moved to a very small town where I grew up in an adobe house. Half of that house had collapsed, and I always love to share this story because I'm not only proud of what I've been through, but it sometimes resonates with people that come from nothing. At the age of 15, I was able to move here with my family to the US, and I always had the urge to own my own business. I always had the urge to build something that was bigger than myself so I could make an impact, not just for my family and I, but for other people as well. So I started in this journey to just realize who I was. And it was all through the hospitality industry, per se, right? I did restaurants, I worked at bars, and I ended up creating a marketing company in about 2007 or 8. Would turn into a marketing company. It was more of a promotions, marketing, production company where I would go and create these beautiful events, day, nighttime, and then host them, produce them, host them, market them. And I would fill rooms. I would fill venues, nightclubs, one-offs. I did up to 3,000 people. And I did that for 10 years. But at the end of that journey in 2017, found myself in a hole, right? I had decided to go into a limited partnership deal where a partner that I had met a couple years ago that I was working with ended up creating this venue, approached me to come in and said, "Hey, George, you should partner with us. It's time for you to partner." And me being this very motivated, driven guy, I went into this partnership. But just to share a little bit about it, it ended up in a terrible way. I ended up investing over $300,000 over a course of 2 years. And I did not know how to structure these deals at the time. And the venue, about a year and a half after it opened up, ended up getting shut down. So the place was ran to the ground. Lesson number 1, always make sure that you vet and understand and know the person running that business, the operator, right? The general partner. So that was my biggest lesson. I came out of there rock bottom. This is the beginning of 2018. I had absolutely nothing. I had lost everything I saved for 300,000+ for 7 years, right? So, and there I was, had absolutely nothing. And my goal was, I've got to do something with my life. I've got to do something with myself. So I forgot about that. And I started studying real estate. I started studying business and I went all in: courses, seminars, books, right? Events, and everything that I could get my hands on that could teach me how to become a true real estate investor. Ultimately, I always had the end in mind. The end in mind was I want to create financial freedom and I want to help other people do the same thing through different methods, right? So I ended up in short-term vacation rentals about 6 months into my real estate journey. I was doing fix and flips and wholesale deals and a bunch of other type of real estate. And I needed cash flow. I needed more consistency and I needed more predictability because I was putting in cash and I was not getting much out because these things take a while. You've been in real estate. So fast forward about 7 years to today, I've been able to do some pretty awesome things in addition to being in amazing rooms and meeting you, Caleb, in such a great environment, such as the masterminds we're in. I've been able to build a team where we own personally. My wife owned $10 million of real estate and we have a fund and we are planning the future. So I hope that wasn't too much about myself, but I just want to let y'all know. Thank you.
No, man, thank you so much for sharing. I want to hear a little bit more about that kind of lesson learned from the bad partnership decision, because I think that's a big thing that is important to entrepreneurs. Is a lot of times we can feel like we can expedite our success by entering into partnerships, but that's really a critical part of business. So I want you just to give us just a little more, if you can, on if you had it to do over, what would you have done differently in terms of vetting this operating partner that you ended up investing essentially your life savings with and basically lost all of it? What would you do differently in terms of what questions would you ask and how would you structure a partnership like that in the future to ensure that that kind of thing wouldn't happen to you again?
I have one great question. So the first thing I would do is educate myself and how to structure. Like I would go back and literally say, what do I need to do to be able to create a solid partnership where I don't get taken advantage of? So the education piece was what I didn't have. I didn't have the skills. So I did get taken advantage of and I let that happen. It's all me, right? So that was number one. Number two is I would have gotten way better attorney and not trust what other people brought to the table. So that's the two biggest things, right? So educate yourself, get great attorneys to be able to create the paperwork, to put things in place to protect you. And number three, maybe listen to what other people are saying about that person, because I was so eager to become a business owner at the next level that I did not listen. And I ignored the advice of family, friends about this one operator. So, and it was all me just wanting to do this deal, right? So it was crazy, but those are the three lessons.
Yeah. Success leaves clues, but so does shadiness.
Yeah.
What you learn, right? Is as entrepreneurs, right? I've been in a couple not great partnerships. One in particular, I didn't lose 300,000, but you learn from those things, and I think that's what's great about entrepreneurs is we can pick ourselves up. And I was going to say free education, but it's actually really costly education. But then you learn to navigate and continue going forward.
Yeah. Sometimes when people are successful at a young age and they don't have the education, just an example, like the pro athletes don't have financial education. So most of them, actresses and pro athletes and many other industries that end up making tons of money because of their talents, not really their skills, they just have a talent. And they end up in the streets going bankrupt. Look at Mike Tyson, right? He went bankrupt, didn't have the financial education. So that was me. I was doing great without the financial education, without understanding, like, how do I really structure business? Plus, I was an LP in the deal anyway. I had no idea what being an LP was. And I was promoting, I was doing the marketing for the venue, but I did not have the proper understanding of what I was really getting into.
Yeah.
At all.
And so I know that in the pre-production before the episode, we were talking about the journey that you've been on in really learning about buying businesses. And a lot of these lessons learned, I'm sure, have contributed to, one, the desire for you to go down this extensive journey of educating and seeking to become an expert on how to structure a business deal when you're buying a business and what do you look for, but also it's with the end in mind, right? And that was a really compelling reason why we wanted to have you on the show, was because this show is all about helping business owners build with the end in mind. And what better way to do that? At least this was a thought, right? What better way to do that than to put yourself in the buyer's seat, the person who's looking to acquire that business and what they're looking for. And talk to us a little bit about what you've learned so far, what you've implemented, what you're moving toward as you grow in your expertise of becoming an expert in acquiring businesses. Give us one or two big takeaways from this journey that you've been on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first, before I say anything, gents, I've learned to see what I cannot see, right? What do I not see? Keith Cunningham says it in his book, The Road Less Stupid. What do you not see? So I've learned to look for risk first. Is there risk in the person you're partnering with? Is there risk in the deal? What happens if it doesn't work out? What is my second, third exit strategy? So that's been my lesson from my past experiences. Okay. The lessons that I'm learning today is it's pretty much that I can multiply the value, right? In this journey, you and I were talking right before, Caleb, before the show, that I was at a mastermind. And last week, I had a huge epiphany. And the epiphany was that you can go out there and buy mom and pop businesses doing 500,000 in SDE or EBITDA, probably SDE, and which is Salas discretionary earnings, right? Net profits. And then professionalize these businesses that you're buying 2, maybe 3x max, put in professional management, and in a matter of a year, 6 months, potentially double the value of that business. But then you can bulk up. And this was surprising to me. And when I saw the numbers and the case studies and how like it all pans out, it's like real estate on steroids. You can bulk up and package in these businesses in your same vertical, like the same industry that you're in, right? Just different verticals, like all your vendors, for example, right? All your partners, buy your affiliates, right? Buy your service providers, but you can bulk them on in a package and create higher EBITDA, higher profits. And once you hit a certain amount, just call it, I don't know, 10 million for say, 20 million, 50 million, you can actually quadruple your original, maybe 5 times your original value. And that to me was incredible because you cannot do that in any asset class in real estate. So for us, as we buy these portfolios, we're doing the double strategy, right? We're doing the 2 to 3x, maybe double your portfolio's value when you sell it. Cool. And that's great. But once we start adding the portfolios, and now within the portfolio or below the portfolio, let's call it, you have a property management company, which is the next business we're looking to buy. Even though I have a small one, I am looking to buy a larger property management company, both one on, then both another one, both a staging and design business for our unique short-term rentals, right? Both on a cleaning business in a market that we have a lot of assets in. Then you're creating enterprise value. And that is the vision that I am after. Creating enterprise value for our shareholders, creating enterprise value for our partners, right? And not everybody can see that, but I saw it. And as this journey goes on, I am just so excited to continue to share, but also to build out and see what you guys are doing as well as us to see where this journey takes us.
That's awesome. One thing that's coming to my mind is as entrepreneurs, it's always, hey, I want to go start a business. And or you could buy a business that is already in existence. And it seems that may be a better way a lot of times because you've already got the business going. It's already proven. 2 questions, like what made you go that way instead of just starting a business? And as far as getting investors and everything, is it easier to get shareholders and things on an existing business versus just starting it new, right?
Oh man, fantastic comment and question there. So I firmly believe it's much easier. Why? Because you have actual proven track record of that
Right.
business. There's cash. So who would not want to invest in something that's already operating? It has 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years of track record versus starting from zero. I have started many businesses and failed at whatever little piece was, right? Like maybe the marketing, maybe the sales. But when you're buying a machine that's already working, a car that's already running, to me, it's, oh my God, why didn't I start this 10 years ago? Right? Or 5 years ago? I would be way farther if we did that. So to me, and to everybody listening out there, just think, do I go for this? Do I go for that? What has a proven record? That, for me, that was a game changer, right? And it made so much sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think with our primary business, we do large multifamily developments, value add, those kind of things. And we've, I think, stumbled into a little bit of the same strategy. And it came about by just partnering with other vendors, service providers, things like that, and having a less than ideal experience with those and seeing ways that if we were to own and run those businesses, how we would do things differently to really cater to how we wanted those businesses to support our primary business. And we've started now 4 different companies that are all about supporting our primary business, but they're horizontal companies that could each be built and scaled apart from our core business. But the reason we started them and are running them and building them is because we just weren't getting the level of service, the level of support to our primary business through the various service providers and other companies that we had worked with in the past. And it seems that happens, I don't know, intuitively or by accident with us, but you're being very methodical and very intentional by looking at it from an even further down the line perspective of how can I take something that's already established and has infrastructure and has cash flow and has a proof of concept, buy that business and then professionalize it initially with the goal of having a horizontal company that supports the primary thing that you're focused on, which is building out these exceptional short-term rental portfolios. Am I understanding that's your strategy or that's the direction that you're headed and what you're looking at?
Yeah, brother, that is correct. Our business focuses on creating unique, experiential, high-end short-term rentals. And that could be in the form of single family assets and in the form of a portfolio. Like right now where we've got under contract, we're raising capital for a portfolio of 18 properties in St. Louis. So that's one, right? For us, very niche in every market. We're also looking into building out micro resorts on our next project. So anything that could be, that's what I call the more of an experiential project, right? And experiential by the means of customer centric rather than property centric, right? Because most of the business, where the industry is right now, is nicer, higher end, right? That's where it's going. So most people that are operating in this short-term rental industry, they have nice homes. They're doing okay for themselves. But where the industry and the puck is going, so you call that, it's actually the experiential industry, right? Everything in this short-term vacation rental industry is heading towards being unique, experiential, and high-end, customer-centric. And that is in the form of amenities and creating experiences where people can enjoy and love that time and enjoy that time with their families, right? And that's what us millennials in today's day and age, right? We are so engaged in our phones and computers for 10 hours a day that by the time we're done, we're so tired. And when we get away, we want a place where we can experience these emotional connections. And that's where these assets come. That's where they come in. But yeah, I think that's the direction we're definitely heading. And that's where the industry's going. We're seeing it ahead of time. And if you are ahead of your market and figuring out these trends and where they're going to, then you can win. Right. And it's easier to win because now you're ahead of the competition. Right.
George, it sounds like you've got your primary business that is like that you're building from the ground up, right? But then you're also buying existing businesses, and even some of those are portfolios of businesses. Is that right?
That is correct.
And do all of those supplement or conserve your primary business, or are you just looking at any kind of profitable business, even if it's standalone and doesn't really integrate with what you're doing, but is just an investment decision? Are you doing that too?
As of right now, our goal is over the next 12 months to buy 2 businesses that integrate and support our primary business, right? Mm-hmm. Which we focus on creating lifestyle assets, cash flow, and wealth for our investors, right? Through these median, unique, high-end short-term rentals. So anything that supports that vision is part of that. Now, reverse engineering us from the end to now, it's as we bolt these on to the primary business, which is buying the portfolios, right? The investment company, then the value of what we're doing goes up because everything supports each other, right? So when we sell this thing, this massive, large portfolio, it'll have everything that a private equity firm or an insurance company needs in order to operate it. So they want to buy something that is higher in EBITDA, right? That's what most of private equities buy. Higher numbers is better. They're going to pay a higher multiple. And then they're going to have everything they need to be successful without having to try to go and partner with vendors all over the country, because that's the hardest part and why these larger institutional operational companies, family offices, that's why they don't go buy portfolios like we do, because it takes work. It takes operators. But if you integrate it all together, then it makes perfect sense. Hey, I'm just going to go buy all of this and it's going to operate on its own. I've got all the components to operate it. It's like buying a brand new car and it's a self-driving car.
Yeah. So you have vertical integration, more control, more visibility, and ultimately greater end value.
100%. And you're increasing the value of the portfolio as you increase the value of your entire business acumen, your business assets, right? With these companies below it.
Yeah. So just to summarize your overall strategy for our listeners, you have a primary business where you acquire unique, experiential, high-end, short-term rental portfolios. A lot of what it takes to manage and operate those are things like, obviously, property management, having people that can work to keep those short-term rentals occupied, as high a nightly occupancy as possible, and market those and get those in high standing on Vrbo and Airbnb and all those different platforms, and have expertise in that. But then there's the servicing of those as you're turning over rentals. You've got cleaning, you've got maintenance, you've got trash removal, you've got all those different kind of things that are all built in. And so your focus is, if I can buy a property management, short-term rental property management company that is already successful at doing this, if I can buy a cleaning business that is already proven profitable, then you can scrape profits from all those different things while also improving your core business. And so the goal here is acquire existing businesses that serve your primary business, bolt them onto that primary business, and it beefs up the value of your primary business. And then you have multiple exit strategies, right? You could sell off your entire primary business with all of these bolt-on businesses for a significant premium. Or you could see that, hey, this one is scaling and growing exponentially more than the others, and you could exit that business and sell it separately for a 4 or 5x multiple over time by professionalizing it and making it a much more profitable business. And so I love that strategy because it gives you multiple different angles and options for owning your exit. And so I want to talk a little bit more about your short-term rentals, man, because I find myself all the time looking at, like right now we're getting ready to have some renovation work and stuff done on our home. And so we've been looking at short-term rentals to get out of the house and stay in while the renovations are happening in our house. And so one of the things is, if we're going to have to leave our primary residence for any amount of time, then let's make it fun. Let's make it an experience. Let's go to a place that's nicer than the house that we live in now. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. It seems like that's where the bread and butter of the short-term rental industry is, right? Is when folks, I think about, it's the whole reason I've never been like a big fan of camping for vacation. I like camping for camping. If I want to go and stay in the woods, I want to be in a tent, and it's an experience in and of itself. But I'm not going to go camping for vacation. My dad's he's like a go camping on vacation, right? Camp at the beach in a pop-up camper or whatever. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I get it. I'm down with that. But if I don't want to work hard all year and take 2 weeks and go live like a homeless person. You know what I mean? For vacation. Yeah, totally. And so you want to, that's my philosophy, right? So talk to us a little bit about how do you identify these portfolios, because you're buying a portfolio right now in St. Louis. Number one, correct. Just being honest, when I think of like places that I want to go on vacation, St. Louis is definitely not at the top of my list, but there's obviously a very significant market there for short-term rentals, or you wouldn't be buying them. So talk to us a little bit about how you're applying your strategy in unexpected places, because it would be easy for people to think, oh, let's go buy short-term rentals in Clearwater Beach, Florida, or somewhere where a lot of people like to go on vacation and visit. But that isn't really the trend for short-term rentals, right? At least from my limited knowledge. I'd love for you to speak to that. Why buy a high-end, unique, experiential portfolio of short-term rentals in St. Louis?
I love it. So let's talk about the industry first, right? So what most people do is exactly what you just said, Caleb. They go and they find the best markets. The best markets are the most expensive real estate markets. Like Clearwater Beach is extremely expensive, and you can make money there, but all the real meat's already cut off. Like it's just skin now, right? So you can make some money there, but nothing like finding a secondary market. Okay. So when you think of markets, think of three different areas. So you've got your metro markets, and that's all cities and basically everything around the city, smaller towns and suburban. Then there is your regional markets, which is your Clearwater. Most regional markets are attached to a city. So Clearwater is attached to Tampa. And then you have your national markets, right? So your national market is going to be your Hawaii's, your Breckenridge, Colorado's, your Aspens, your Rocky Mountains and Smoky Mountains. Those are the most expensive. Those, I call it international markets, where people have to fly out to in order to visit. Okay. We invest in secondary regional markets and metro markets, secondary metro markets. So St. Louis is a secondary metro market. So it's not one of your top Chicago, for example, right? Beautiful architecture, super expensive, or New York or LA, or even Houston, right? Now I live in Houston. That's why I invest here. My entire team is here, right? But investing in these primary markets, you're cutting off all the meat. Now, could you make money if you have fantastic financing, you pay all cash completely? Yes, absolutely. But I'm talking about for the regular folk who's buying 2, 3, 4, 5 properties in their lifetime. They have to specifically find the best markets for what their goal is first. Okay. For us, it was finding recession-resistant markets because of the reverse engineered strategy that we have. We're finding 3 different sectors. We're searching 3 different sectors within the short-term rental industry, within our industry. So we want to make sure that as we sell this portfolio, it behaves like a bond, right? So because we want to build a slow growth bond-like portfolio so that private equity or an insurance company comes back to us and says, oh, I like how your revenue didn't fluctuate. It increased well over the last 3 to 4 years. And in addition to that, I like how your real estate appreciated at 3 to 4%, maybe 5%. That would be really high, right? 3 to 4% a year over the last 3 to 4 years. I like this. I think I want to buy this, and I'm going to pay you a higher multiple because I have less chance of my entire business going down if a recession happens. So with national markets and your Clearwaters, your expensive real estate markets, if a crash happens tomorrow, and it might happen in the next 10 years, you never know. We've been due for a crash, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years already. If a crash happens tomorrow in the real estate market, Arizona's, your Vegas, your Hawaii's, they're going to be the first ones to go, not just in demand, but also they're going to crash into real estate prices. So we want to build something that's steady, slow growth, right? When it comes to acquiring the strategy behind everything we're doing. Okay. So that's the strategy and the whole journey towards our sell. Now, repeat to me if I covered, Caleb, did I cover everything that you were, maybe did I forget something in there?
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, it's really thinking of it, what I'm understanding, it's really thinking of it it's why we invest primarily in the Midwest as well. If you look back in 2020, the pandemic, Kansas City, where most of our assets, where we own most of our multifamily assets are in the Kansas City market, a few down in Northwest Arkansas as well because of the extraordinary growth that's happening down there. But if you look at, for example, the excess supply situation, that's consolidated in a lot of the larger Sunbelt cities, right? 13 of the 13 Sunbelt cities, and there's basically 20 metro areas in the U.S. that have an oversupply, right, of new multifamily inventory that has come online in 2024. And even though Forbes projects that there'll be a national shortage by 2026, banks have tightened up their lending on multifamily assets, especially national banks all across the nation, on new development of apartment buildings because of that excess supply that's consolidated in some of the bigger, more popular markets for multifamily building and investing. And so you're simply taking the same kind of strategy that we've taken with multifamily, and you're looking at it from short-term rentals. You're looking at, there's a lot of places, right? Imagine in the pandemic, the economies that got hit the hardest were probably those places that were larger tourism-driven economies, right? Especially in short-term rentals, right? Those went to zero because nobody was traveling for vacation, for leisure. There were still people that were traveling and renting for work. They were all those kind of things. And those markets were less impacted and were more, they call it pandemic resilience, right?
Yeah.
And so it seems to make sense that you're building with all of the macroeconomic factors and potential market fluctuations in mind, understanding that Hawaii is a great place to buy short-term rentals if everything is going good. But when things go bad, you could absolutely lose your tail. And so the higher risk, the higher reward, you're looking at how can we de-risk our short-term rental portfolios so that we can see steady growth over time, steady growth in revenue, steady growth in value appreciation, and then have a more solid portfolio to then exit to a larger institution like an insurance company or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds exactly it. And I do want to add one more thing though. Hey, look, when a recession or like a pandemic happens, people still go on vacation. They just don't fly. They drive. They'll take a little mini vacation, and that's where they're regional. Let's drive over an hour to like from Houston to Galveston, or from these major cities to an hour away. That's why we love. So we have a combination of decent, affordable real estate, right? And then also closer to your major city. And that's what these secondary markets are, just to give you an example.
Excellent.
Right? But that is in full the exact strategy we're taking, and I'm glad you're taking that too.
Something I love about your approach is like, there's a lot of Airbnb or short-term rentals. My wife had a couple of short-term rentals. We renovated a couple historic homes, and they were actually in Kansas City, which is like our conversation, not like a vacation destination, but she was crushing it on those because of people driving on road trips who were coming through, and we were making huge cash-on-cash return, and they were very boutique. So I'm tracking with you on that with some of those secondary markets. But I love how when you buy real estate and you just have long-term rentals, there's just not much cash flow. But so you've got people who do that side of it where it's just basically an equity play and there's a little bit of cash flow. And then there's the other side where like with short-term rental operators where they're doing master leases or different things like that where it's only cash flow. But by what you're doing is like that long-term approach is what it seems like, is being able to combine those, right? Where you're going high end so you can get that cash flow that and have that desirability where that's current. But then you're super careful and strategic about where you're buying the assets and what kinds of assets they are so that you have the equity too. And
Exactly.
so you don't see that long-term thinking a lot of times it's almost like everybody knows that you buy real estate and hold it, and that's a wealth building strategy. But then you're hacking that to get that current cash flow and really accelerate that and get more of it. I know we actually sold our 2 short-term rentals earlier this year. And
Oh, no.
yeah, we have 5 kids, so my wife didn't want to manage them anymore. She was very hands-on. She was watering the plants. She was going and fixing up, going to antique stores and replacing out the coffee table and stuff. She's just a lot of fun for her. But so we may get back into it again. We cash flowed off all of them, but then we sold them and made more money than we ever made on cash flow, even though we had them for 4 or 5 years, because we bought good homes at a good basis that just the equity of them was more than the cash flow. But we were getting it from both ends. Just wanted to mention that. And I think it's a really cool long-term strategy that you're doing, even separate from getting these supplemental businesses that are adding value, that are where you can control the servicing of your portfolio. It's definitely a long-term approach. So yeah, good job, man.
Yeah. And thank you. I appreciate that. It takes time sometimes. I'm not going to say here that I've always thought that way. You can only start thinking long term if you got the short term figured out, right? So if you already know that something is working, then you're like, okay, this is working. Now I've got to put the pedal to the metal, right? For us, it took quite a few years to really figure out what worked because we tested, we tried everything, and it's just not, the information is out there, but you have 100 different people saying different things, and we have to test it for ourselves. And the things that worked, we're refining, right? And now that I could see very well in front of me, it's just like if you've got all your pieces in place, when you're seeing all your chess pieces here, then you can think about the next 5, 6 moves or 7 moves, right? So it was a progression, fellas. It took time to progress and be able to see farther. I've always been a visionary, and I'm sure you are too, and you could probably resonate with this. But in order to see farther, you've got to see closer first and have it all under control. And to be able to understand all the pieces in your own court first, right? You've got to know everything, like know every single piece. So now you can go to the next move. Right. Then you can go to the next move. And that is the transition that we're going to right now. That's why, hey, now we're buying portfolios. We know exactly what that strategy needs to be. And we know where it's taking us. And then now it's time to just put the pedal to the metal and scale. Right now with the business buying, like, I'm just so amazed that you could do that. That's insane, right? And if you're a business owner listening out there and you don't know that you could literally bolt on businesses and double or triple the value just by professionalizing it, putting professional management, you should look into that, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. I think it's a really great takeaway. I love that. I'm just summarizing what you just said, that the greatest clarity builder for long-term vision is clear short-term vision. If you understand what's at stake and what it takes to be successful in just the marginal short-term steps, then that gives you the clarity you need for what needs to be done in the long term. Because a lot of times the only thing that we really need to do is the thing that we need to do today for a long time. Man, I feel like this conversation could keep going. I'm really enjoying it. We're at the point in the episode where we're going to jump into the exit round. It's just a lightning round, firing off quick responses to 5 questions that we ask every single person who jumps on the show. I'll jump in with the first question. George, what's your all-time favorite business book?
$100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi is the book that woke up the giant. It took me from being able to just see closer to seeing what if I create and package what I already have, which is resonates exactly with the properties, creating beautiful properties packages that people feel stupid to not pay you for.
Yeah. Question 2, what percentage of your income is fully passive versus active and earned?
I would say right now about 40 to 50% for myself because we have some notes, right? And then also My wife runs that team. Now, for our family, more like maybe 10 to 20 because she runs it. She runs the other business that I'm not part of, which is our property management.
Yeah.
Excellent. So right now you got a lot of business commitments. What's one thing that you wish you could do more of, but those commitments hold you back?
Travel with my family and take every single weekend to be completely present with them. I've done it some, but not enough.
That's a good answer, and I know the feeling. Yeah. Number 4, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your former self? Never started a business, brand new.
That's a great question. I would just say, George, learn and study before you make any decisions. Understand everything about what you're about to get into before you pull the trigger. That's what I do now. And it pays off.
Excellent. What is your last question here? What's your strategy for creating time freedom and financial freedom for yourself? And feel free to share 1 or 2 strategic, actionable tips.
Absolutely. I work very closely on calendar blocking. Every minute of my day is blocked and it's tracked. When I'm sitting at my desk and there's an app called Toggle Tracker, I track my time to see what I'm spending it on and I review it. But when I block my time, it allows me to focus on that. And I block time for everything, even personal stuff. The other one would be focusing on income so that the money, right? Focusing on buying these businesses that could produce cash flow and income, buying these portfolios so that the money could buy me time because money buys time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the core goal ultimately of investing or building a business is to buy back time, right? That's ultimately what we're all trying to do as entrepreneurs is purchase back time for ourselves because time is the most scarce resource that we have. It's always diminishing in its supply. Every day that goes by, every moment that goes by, we get less of it. And so buying as much of that back as we can, using our time to buy back time, I think is super powerful, man. Man, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you joining Own the Exit. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show at some point in the future. And man, any kind of closing thoughts here, Aaron, before we wrap this episode up?
No, just my couple of my quick takeaways are just having that big vision, right? And beginning with kind of the end in mind, thinking about the way you're doing things. It doesn't seem like you're just fumbling around and not thinking about the future, but it's like you're building backwards. And I think that's a big takeaway is just that's how I'm wired to, is to be building unto something. And that was a big kind of takeaway from all the different things you're doing that kind of resonated with me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how can our listeners get connected with you, George? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I love it. But first of all, thanks for having me. It's been actually an amazing episode, gentlemen. So thank you.
Thank you.
My personal website is George Salas 360, GORGESALAS 360. All my socials are there. Some of my Airbnbs are there. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome. So check out, if you want to get more from George Salas, go to georgesalas360.com. You can connect with George on social media and take a deeper look into everything that he's involved in. Thanks everybody again for joining us for Own the Exit. We'll see you next time.
See you next time, guys. Thank you.